Nextjs has always blurred the lines between frontend and backend, but with server actions, that boundary just got thinner. Server actions let us run server-side logic directly from our React components. That means no need for separate API. But the best way to really understand server actions is by getting our hands dirty. In this tutorial, we're going to create a beautiful to-do list with server actions. That means we're not going to have any single API route. We're going to see the power of server actions, caching, and mutation of data. That means even if you refresh this page, the data still persists. We're going to perform actions such as editing. For example, I can change this one from shopping and I can change it to something like recording. And one thing we see is that it's instant. When I click edit, you can see it has actually changed instantly to recording. At the moment, we only have one completed task. Great. Let us mark this one as complete. Therefore, when I click here, we can see it's completed. Another thing we can do, we can also delete a task. And when I click delete, let us delete this one here. Great. And as you can see, immediately the task is deleted. We can also monitor the titles with spaces, the total number of tasks, and tasks that are pending. All this without even using any single API route. Beautiful. We can also add a task here. For example, I can add a task such as teaching. Great. And to add it, it's as simple as this. Just click here, add, and you can see we have this task here, teaching. Without further ado, let us dive in and discover the world of server actions. Welcome to this beautiful tutorial. We're going to start learning server actions by creating a new folder inside the desktop. Ensure that it's empty. I've given mine a name of to-dos. So you can give it a name of your choosing, then drag and drop inside your Visual Studio Code. Great. I'm going to close this. The next thing is pretty easy. Just click on these three dots here, then new terminal. Great. To run our project, we'll need a Nextjs template. And to do that, you can just copy this command npx create -next-app@latest, then space dot and a /. This / ensures that the project will be created inside this to-dos folder. Great job. Ensure you select TypeScript and you can leave the rest as default. After doing that successfully, you will see this success message. That means our project has been created successfully. The next thing, you just need to run the template by simply typing npm run dev. Great. And when you open your folder, you should actually see the project running. After running npm run dev, when we move directly to localhost 3000, we can see our project is running successfully. Great job. That has been a quick way of just getting started so that we can have our a boiler template to run our project. After running our project successfully, the next step is pretty easy. You just need to move inside nextconfig.ts, click on it, and we need to enable server actions. So inside it, we can just say experimental, and we need to pass in server actions. So you can just do server actions, and we can pass an empty object like that. When you do this, server actions is already enabled in your Nextjs project. Great job. The next thing, pretty easy. Just move inside your app folder. You're going to create a new folder that we're going to work with to create our to-do list with server actions. Great. Now right click on app, then new folder. I'm going to name my folder to-dos. Great. And inside it, I'm going to create a page.tsx. Great. Open it, and we need to create a new function for this page. Export default function, and we're going to call this function to-dos page. Beautiful. And inside it, we can just return a HTML main. Great job. Inside it, we can just do something like this. We can create a h1 tag, and we can say to-do list. Ensure you save, and when we move inside our project, you just need to move inside your browser and navigate into this folder that we have created here, into this page. So how do we navigate to this page? It's pretty easy. You just move inside your localhost 3000, then a / to-dos like that. Great job. We can see we have our to-do list here. That means our page /to-dos has been created successfully. The next thing, we need to provide some stylings to this main. Therefore, you can just do this a class name, and we're going to have a max width of 6 XL. We're also going to have padding in the X direction and also a padding in the Y direction, and you can just give it a value of 8. Great. We're also going to have space in the horizontal direction or the vertical direction and a value of 10. And as obvious, the text is going to be white. Great. The next thing, I'm going to create a file that will be used to mock our database operation. Therefore, we can just create a new folder outside here, just below here, and we're going to name this folder lib. Great. And inside it, I'm going to create a function that will be used to mock database operation. Therefore, you can just give it a beautiful name like mockdb.ts. Great job. And inside it, we are going to define the shape of our to-do list. So to do that, it's pretty easy. You can just say export type. Let us call it to do, like that. And then we're going to assign it an object. And inside the object, we're going to have an ID, which is a string. We're also going to have a title, which is also a string. And finally, we're also going to have the completed status, a boolean. A boolean like that, so that a task can either be completed or not. Great. Now that we have this, next thing, we can declare an array that is going to store this to-do list. So how do we do that? It's pretty easy. You can just do export and let to do. So you can say export and let us call this array to do's. And you can see I have a suggestion here. We have initialized an empty array to store our to-do list. Great job. And the next function, we can just do this. We're going to export a function that will be called to fetch all the to-dos. So we can say this export function, and we're going to call it get to-dos. Great. And this function is going to be of type to do, which is an array. So you can just say to do like that, and then we're going to return the to-dos. So you can just do simply return the to-dos, which is going to be the array. Ensure that this to-do is an array, so you just ensure that it is curly brackets like that. Beautiful. So what have we really done? We have just defined the shape of our to-do list. The next thing, we have initialized an empty array to store our to-do list, and finally we have created a function that is going to return everything that is inside our to-do list. Great job. That means we can call it inside our to-dos page. So you can move back inside your to-dos page, and the first thing we can do is just to import get to-dos. Great. So you can say import and say get to-dos. Great. And you're importing it from lib mockdb. This is beautiful. The next thing, since it is an array, we can perform some actions. We can perform some actions such as fetching the array, knowing the size of the to-do list, and so much more. But first, let us provide some heading. So inside here, I'm going to comment this. I'm going to categorize this into sections so that it can become easier to follow. So this first part, I'm going to call it the header. So this is just the heading, or you can call it the header. We're also going to have a H6, just a smaller heading. You can just do it like that. And I'm going to say with server actions, no API routes. Great. Let us provide some styling to this header. So how can we do it? It's pretty easy. Just move inside your H1 for to-do list, and then we can provide some beautiful styling. So you can say text is going to be 3XL, and the font, we want the font to be extra bold. You can just say extra bold, and the text to be at the center, and we want the text to have this color of cyan. So you can just say cyan, and you're going to give it a value of 400. Great. Let us also style the second H6 tag, which is going to be a smaller heading in comparison to the H1 tag. So you can say class name. Great. And I'm just going to copy this, the same styling that we have for H1, and I'm going to have them inside here. So we can have it inside the second H6 tag. So you can just do it like this. But what is going to be the difference is going to be the color. So instead of cyan, the second one can be amber. But let's go with amber, and the rest you can just leave as default. But to distinguish the two H1 tags, we can do this. Instead of this one, both of them being extra bold, we can make one only just bold. So the second one, just make it bold like that. And you can just leave it as it is. Great job. And you can move inside our browser and check how things look like. All right, when we check our browser, we can see that the page has been created successfully, and you can see we have the H1 and the H6. This is beautiful. So we have to-do lists and with server actions, with server actions and no API routes. So you can just ensure that to-do list starts with capital letter. This is just for beauty purposes. You can just do it like this. Great. The next part that we're going to do with is we are going to call it the summary. So you can just copy this H6 tag and then below it, and then let us just call this the summary like that. Great. And inside the summary, we can create a div like this. And first, let us give some styling to this div. So you can just do the class name, and we're also going to have a background of cyan and a value of 600. And when we hover, we can increase the intensity of the background color. So we can have cyan, and then we can just increase the intensity a bit so that it becomes 700. And you also want smooth transition, and also the text is going to be white. Oops, I don't think this is the styling for the summary, so I'm just going to delete this. Let us give it some stylings. So for summary, we're going to have a vertical space, and the value is going to be 2, and also a padding of 5, and a background color is going to be gray, and we're going to give it a value of 900. And we're going to have rounded corners, so you can just say rounded excel, and also a shadow like that. Great. You can just save this. And when we look inside our browser, you can just see this background that we have given, a background color of gray, and a value is 900. Great. Let us provide some content to this summary. This summary is going to provide things like the completion status of tasks, the number of tasks that you have created, and so much. Great. Let us create another H1 or rather H2 tag. So you can just say H2, and you're going to call it summary. Great. Let us provide some stylings. So you can just do class name and text. Let us make it to Excel, slightly smaller, and the font also bold. Great. And the text is going to be white. Great. And you can just save that. And then let us also create something else. We're going to create an ordered list. So you can just do UL from HTML, an ordered list, and let us give some class name first to this ordered list. So you can just say class name. Great. And inside the class name, we can provide the text color, and you can just say text gray, and you're going to give it a value of 300, and also we want the text to be large. And finally, we're going to have a vertical space of 1. Great job. The next thing, inside an ordered list, we can order each individual lists. Great. So you can just have the first list item, and this one is going to show the total tasks. Great. I've added some symbols, as you can see here. You do not require any library to have these symbols. They're just like text. Great. I'm just going to copy one of these symbols so that we can make our to-do list beautiful. So I'm going to copy this symbol of a note, and then I'm just going to put it here. Great. Then I'm going to save, and inside the total task you can also add this symbol, but it's optional. So you can just also copy this symbol and then come here inside the total task, and you can just do that. Great job. Then we're having these total tasks, and then inside it we need to render a span. So you can just render a span from HTML. Great. And inside the span we can do something. Since we know that to-dos is an array, we can fetch the length of that specific array, these to-dos that we are getting here. So you can just say to-dos dot length. Great. As you can see, we are having this error that it cannot find to-dos. That means we need to import it. Just as a recap, these to-dos, we defined it inside our lib mockdb.ts, and you can see here export to-dos. This one is just an empty array, and it will be used to store all the to-do list. Great. Let us just import it. So you can just come here on top, and then we need to import to-dos. So you can just do import to-dos. Great. Nice. And you're importing it from lib mockupdb. Great job. Now we have this, therefore we have total task, and you can just check inside our browser. Good job. And as we can see, we have our total task is 0. And let us style this more beautifully. Therefore, let us start with the icon first, so that we can have the icon here. So at the first part, so we have the icon here. Great. Before the total task, and let us also style this span. So inside the span, let us just do a class name, and inside the class name, let us provide the color. The color is going to be white. Great. And the font is going to be semi-bold, just like that, and we are done. Great. I'm going to copy this. Ensure you copy this list, the first list, so that we can create the second list. Then you can just move down and then do it like this. So the second list is not going to be for total task, it's going to be to show the completed state. So you can just do this completed in just below this part, and we're going to use this tick symbol here. So you can just copy that here. These symbols are optional. Great. The symbols are optional, and you can just say completed. Great. And inside it, we're going to do something special. So since we know that to-dos is an array, we can actually fetch the number of completed to-do list. Great. So how can we do it? It's pretty easy. We can do this. We're going to use a filter method. So we can just say to-dos.filter. Then inside it, we're going to take an individual to-do and an arrow function. So you can just do an arrow function like this, but we're interested with one thing. We're interested with the completed state. So you can say to-do.completed. And then finally, we get the length. So you can just do the length like that. Good job. This is going to return an array whereby all the lists that are completed will be counted. Great job. And we can just save this. When we move back, it should be 0. Beautiful, because we do not have any lists, we do not have any task at the moment. That's why it's returning 0. This is beautiful, and it also shows you that to deal with arrays is pretty easy. Great. The next thing, we can just get the pending state. Therefore, I'm going to copy this. But before I copy this, I'm going to change this color. Instead of white, let us give this color green. So you can just do green, and a value is going to be 400. Great job. And when we move, we should see that this 0 changes to green. Great job. And you can see actually it has taken place very well. Great. The next thing, let us get the pending state. So I'm going to copy this list. Ensure you copy the second list, and we're using it to actually write the third list. So we can do that. And how are we going to do this? So that list is going to be for pending state. So pending is opposite of completed. So if it's opposite of completed, how can we do it? First, let me change this icon. I'm going to copy this icon and just paste it here. Great. And then inside here, the only thing that is going to change, we're going to put a not sign here. Great job. So we have actually negated this statement. Instead of completed, we are getting the ones that are not completed, and we are saying that these are the pendings, or just pending. We can actually do this. In fact, let me just put a colon in front of each and every list. Great. And the final one, just as a bonus, we can even get the titles with spaces. So how can we do that? Let me just copy this. Great. And for the fourth list, let us change this one to title. So we can just do this title. Let us just use this sign here. So you can change this one here to that. And I'm going to say title with spaces. Title with spaces. So in this way, we are just interested with titles with spaces. So how can we do it? It's pretty simple. So this time we are not going to deal with completed. So we're going to deal with the title itself. So we can say to do dot title, and then we are checking if it includes something. So you can say to do dot title dot includes, and then inside it we can just say a space like that. Great. So if it includes this space, we're going to also count it. It's as simple as that. Great job. And we are done with this section of summary. But instead of having green here, let us also change this color to blue. So I'm going to change this color to blue, the final color. Great. So that we can have, this is white, this is green, and this one is also green, but this one is blue. But let us also change this one to give it a different color. For the pending, let us give it a yellow. So you can just do this, change the green to yellow. This is just for aesthetic purposes and making it more beautiful. And you can see the pending is changing to yellow. Great job. We have finished the first part. Let me just enlarge it so that you can see we have to-do list with server actions, no API routes, and we have a summary here. Total task at the moment is 0, completed is 0, pending is 0, and title with spaces is still 0. Good job. We are moving the next part, which is actually our agenda of today. We are going to work with server actions. Therefore, let us create a function, and I'm going to call this a subsection so that it can be easier to follow. The next subsection is for creating a new node, where we are going to use server actions. So you can just say create a new to-do list. It's actually not a note, but a to-do list. Great. So we can do it like this. So for the to-do list, we are going to use form, and this is the way you use server actions. You actually use forms, and then inside the action you pass the exact name of the function of the server actions. Let us see how it's going to be. But inside the form, we're going to create. And how do we create actually a note? We need to create a note by passing the title. So we need an input. So you can just say an input and a button to submit the title. Great. So we're just using native HTML button. Inside this button, let us provide the word add. So it's going to add a note. Great. And we can just use this sign of the plus sign here. You can just put it here. Remember, I've said these signs and symbols are optional. You don't have to use them. Great. Let us provide some styling to this. Great. Inside it, let us provide the name. So this form is going to submit the title of the note. Therefore, the name is going to be the title. So you can just do name, and then inside it, ensure that it is title. And we also need to provide a placeholder. So you can just do placeholder like that. And the placeholder is going to be enter a new title or a new task. So you can just enter a new task. Great. And finally, you're going to provide an attribute of required, making this input compulsory. Great. The next thing, let us provide just the class name. So you can just do class name here. But before we provide the class name, we can save and see how it looks like. We should be able to see an input. So ensure that you save. Great. And you can see we have it here. Let me enlarge this. We can see we have enter a new task and we have add here. Great. Let us provide some stylings to this. There's one thing I've noticed is that enter a new task is part of this summary, which should not be the case. So what we can do is I'm going to remove this div here, and I'm going to just put it and close it here so that it can be something different. Just below this placeholder, let us write this class name, and we're going to have flex1. Let us also provide the background color. So you can say BG gray and a value of 800. The text is going to be white. You're also going to have a border, and the color of the border can be gray and a value of 700. Great. You're also going to have rounded corners, so you can just say rounded, and a padding in the X direction and a padding in the Y direction, and a value of 4. Or we can use 2, it will be sufficient. Let us also have rounded, so you can just say rounded Excel. Oh, we already have this rounded here, so I think I have a typo here, so just ensure that it's border gray. We already have rounded here, so instead of repeating rounded, let us add another styling here. We already have this padding, so we can just add a focus, and the focus is going to be ring. Great. Let us also provide the color of the ring, so you can just repeat focus, ring, and then provide a color. So we can use even amber and value of 500. Great. The next thing we need to do is just provide a function here that will be called whenever this form is submitted. This form can be submitted even if JavaScript is not loaded. That means you can actually work with these forms without even having JavaScript at that specific point. Great. And this function that you're going to call at this point is a special function, and it's called a server action function. So we can just do this, and we're going to create another function here. So we're just going to pass another function that will be called, and we can call that function handle add to do. Great. We do not have this function at the moment. This is a server action. So how do we create server actions? It's pretty easy. You can just come here inside our to-dos and right click. You can create it anywhere, but for this case, let us just create it here. You can new file, and we're going to save it actions.ts. Great. The normal convention of creating a server function is actually by defining it like this, actions.ts, but it's not a must you use this name. To actually declare that this is a server function, at the top of the file, you can just do this, use server. So this is the most important part, not actually the naming part. The naming part can be any name, but you must include here at the top, use server. This will tell Nextjs that this is a server component. Great. The next thing, we need to create this function. So how do we do that? We can do it very easily. We can say export default function, and we're going to call this function handle add to do. So you can just do that. Great. Now that we have this function can be called inside our page.tsx. So let us just import it. So you can just do this, add to do, then import it. Great. Then you can just save, and if you've done that correctly, you can see handle add to do has been imported from actions. Instead of default, let us actually define this one as an asynchronous function. So you can just say export async function handle add to do. Great. And this is our server action function. The only thing we need to do is we have to pass form data. So therefore, you can just pass form data as form data. You can just do this as form data. Great. And how do we actually fetch whatever has been passed here? So let us go back. You can see that we have this name title. So we have, how do we get this title that has been passed using this input? So we can do it very simply, and the way you get it is you say like this. So we need to declare title. You can just say constant title is equal to, then you can just do form data dot get. This is how you fetch data using server actions. Great. And then we pass in the name, which is the title. We are fetching the title, and since you're working with TypeScript, you can just do this at the end. If you're working with JavaScript, there's no need of just doing this. Great job. Now we are receiving the title. The next thing we need to do, we just need to move down here, and you can perform some validation, and you can say if not title. Great. And you can just return. You can also perform validation using Zod, but for simplicity, we'll just leave it like this. Great. And for testing purposes, let me just do this console.log, and let us log the title that we receive. Great job. Let's move back inside this and let us see if where we have an error. Great. Let me just change this one. We have changed it from a default export to a named export, so we just need to import it again. You can just do import handle add to do. Great. And we're importing it from actions. Beautiful. We can move inside our project, and I'm going to actually let us refresh to ensure that it's imported well. So you can just go back and save. Great. And let us move back inside our project and see. All right, this is our application. I'm going to try to provide some data here, and we'll see whether the data is being consoled. Therefore, I'm going to have this side by side just for simplicity so that you can also see the data that is being consoled. So I'm just going to provide some random data here, and if you're going to have a success, we should be able to see it here, and it's working beautifully. As you can see, we are consoling the title here very well. This is beautiful. That means it's a success. But instead of just consoling, we want to actually have a real operation that is done. So we're going to call another function. I'm going to delete this part instead of just consoling, and I'm going to do this. We can even call this function add title. Great. And then inside it, we just need to provide the title. Beautiful. At the moment, we do not have this function, therefore we need to create it. Since you're working with to-do list, instead of just saying add title, I don't think this is the right name. We can just do a name that actually matches the operation. So we can have something like add to do, so that we know we are not adding a title, but we're actually adding a to-do list. So we do not have this function yet. And this brings us to the next part. We need to define this function. And where are we going to define this function? It's actually inside the mockdb.ts, so that we can actually perform this operation. mockdb.ts is a file that actually shows us how, or it actually tells us how we can do it in a database way. So let us define this function add to do. So you can just copy this and then go inside your mockdb.ts and let us define it here. So we can say export function add to do. And this function is going to be of type void. Being of type void means it's not going to return anything. Great. And you can just do that. But one thing we notice is that for us to actually create a to-do list, we need the title, and we are passing the title as an argument. Therefore, we can just do this. We are going to receive the title. And since you're working with TypeScript, it's important that we tell TypeScript what the data type of title. And you can see the title is string, the same as here, the title is string. That is what we expect. Beautiful. Now that we have this, we can go back and just import the file. So you can just do add to do. Great. And then you can just save, and you can see add to do has been imported here at the top. Great. The next thing, now that we have the title, we can do, since it's an array, we can see that the shape of our to-do list must have an ID, title, and the completed status. That means whenever we create a to-do list, it must have at least these three. Great. So we can do this. We can say to-dos dot push. Why do we say to-dos? Because to-dos is our empty array that stores all the to-do lists. Great. So you can say to-dos dot push, and inside it, I'm going to provide an object, ID, title, and completed state. So first, let us pass whatever is required here. It's an ID. So what ID do we pass? We just say we're going to provide a random value. Therefore, we can just say random crypto.random UID. Great. Crypto.random UID, like that. Great. And the next thing to pass, we're going to pass the title, and the title we are just receiving it here. So we can just pass whatever we receive. Title, like that. And finally, what do we need? We need to pass the completed state. In fact, even when you hover around, you can see that we are missing one thing. Great. A property of this completed. No problem. Let us just pass it. So we're going to pass completed. And for completed, we want it to be false. So whenever we are creating a task, we want to provide a value of false, so that the task is not yet completed. This is beautiful. And we're actually going to see this in action. We can save and move back inside our project and see it. before we test this, so when I do this, let me just add something. Even if I click add, you can see that the task is still 8. That means it's not incremented unless we refresh this. So when you refresh is when you see that it has actually increased. At the moment we have total task of 9. Let me just add and show you how we can improve it. We can improve performance. So when I have this and click add, it's not actually reflecting in real time. I have to refresh it so that the task can be 10. So how do we handle this? In server actions, there's something beautiful we can do. Just move inside the server actions, and we need to introduce something known as revalidate path. So you can just say revalidate path like that. Ensure that you have revalidate path imported from next cache. So what revalidate path is going to do is going to update the cache. We don't need to actually refresh this page. The only thing we need to do is provide the exact path inside here. So how do we get the exact path? It's pretty easy. Just check here. We are inside this /todos. Therefore, we just need to provide that path. We can just do like this, todos. Great. Then save. And if it's done correctly, let me just add something. This is a first task. Nice. We can see that revalidate path has enabled us to have a direct refresh. We don't need to refresh the page. Let me add another one, the second task, and you can see the total task is 2. Great. Let me add another task. So you can just do this. Beautiful. And you can see the total task is 3. But there's something that baffles me. As you can see here, this task, let me just do shopping. You can see that we have a total task number 4, which is correct. But shopping does not have the spaces. That means we are quite wrong, and we need to edit this. This one is actually showing the title that does not have spaces. So how can we do that? We can just need to move back inside our pages.tsx for to-dos. Great. And we need to check this file. So it's not. So I think here is where I missed it. We need to remove this not because it's actually returning. We need to return those that have spaces. Ensure that you've removed that. Great. And let us move back inside our project. And this time it should not, if I do shopping, it should not register that as a title with spaces. Great. Let me just pass. Beautiful. You can see we have total task of 1 and there is no title with a space, which is correct. So I can do this again. Great. We have a total task of 2 and we do not have a title with space. Let me just add a title with space. So how can I do it? I can just say, all right, recording a video like that. Let me just add. Great. And you can see we only have one title with space. This is really beautiful. And you've just done with the first part of creating a note, and you've also learned about revalidate path, whereby you can update the cache of that specific route. Let us move back inside here. I'm going to copy this part just below this. As you can see, we're actually telling ourselves that we have a total task of 3. But how do we see these tasks? I want to populate these tasks just below here in a grid format. So I'm going to have another section here. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to change this. Let me widen this a bit. And this is just to enable you to understand and also to be able to follow up easily. So I'm going to say this is to-do list in grid format. Great. That means we're going to show each and individual node of that specific list. Great. Now we can just push down a bit, and we're going to create a new section. If we can just do a section like that, and inside the section we can have a h2 like that, and we're going to say tasks. Great. So this section is going to show each individual task. Beautiful. Now we need to provide some styling, but before we provide some styling, you can just save. I'm going to save this, and we should be able to see task here at the bottom. Beautiful. We can see that we have task here at the bottom. That means everything is working beautiful. Great. Let us move to this part and implement it. Great. I'm going to use this sign. You don't have to use this sign. It's not compulsory, but for beauty purposes, I'm going to have it here. Great. So that we can at least improve the way it's shown. Great. And you can save it and we should be able to see it here. So when I enlarge it, great, we're having it here. Beautiful. Let us provide some styling to this H2. So I'm going to enlarge that, and then I'm going to do a class name for H2, and text is going to be Excel. The font is going to be semi-bold, and you're going to have a text of gray and a value of 300 and a margin bottom of 4, and we are done. The next thing, I'm going to have a div, and this div is going to show the individual task, or yes, individual to-do list. So you can just do div like this. Let us provide some class name to this div. As I have told you, we're going to display this one in a grid format. Therefore, the display is going to be grid, and you're going to have a gap of 6, then grid columns 1. So you can just do grid columns 1, and on small devices we want at least to have a grid columns of 2. So you can do grid calls 2, and on medium devices it's going to be 3. So you can just do again grid calls 3, and finally on large devices it's going to be 4. So we can say grid calls 4. That means on large devices we're going to display at least 4 nodes on each individual row. Beautiful. Let us move just below this. Now there's something beautiful I want to show you. We are here, we are getting these to-dos, and we know to-dos is just an array that contains all the nodes. If it's an array, what we can do something here, we can actually map through that to-dos. So you can do this to-dos dot map. Great. And inside it we can take an individual to do, and then we're going to have an arrow function, and inside it we can just have a div. So you can just do a div like that. Beautiful. We are taking to-dos, which is an array that contains all the tasks, and we are mapping through each individual task. So in JavaScript, whenever you're working with arrays and you're mapping something, you need to provide a key inside here. Therefore you can just do key, and it's going to be todo.id. And to test this is working, I'm going to display the title, each title of the node. Therefore I can just do todo.title. You can see we are having title here. This is just for demonstration purposes that our mapping of array is working beautifully. I'm going to save this. Great. And also save it here. Let me just add some task, and if everything is working correctly, we should see the task here at the bottom. Great. Let me just save. So here it's not todo.completed, sorry, it is todo.title. We want the title. Ensure it's title. Great. Ensure you've saved. Let me just add the first task. Beautiful. And we are actually seeing the task here. Great. This is the task that we have entered. We can also enter another task, and let us also confirm that on this device it's going to show at least 4 of them. So I'm adding another one. Let me also add another one. As you can see, we already have 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I add another one, it should not come here, it should just go beneath it. Let me just click add. Beautiful. That means our CSS is working properly. On large devices we're only going to show 4, and on medium devices we're going to show 3, and so forth. Beautiful. You can see we have 3, and on small devices we're only going to have 1. This is great. Now I'm going to delete this, and we're also going to have subsections here. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it here. Great. And instead of to-do list, this small section is going to show, we're going to show the title, and also toggle, we're going to toggle the completion state. Beautiful. That means we are doing 2 things. We're going to show the title, and we're also going to have a function that is going to show to actually flip the completion state. it's going to flip whether it's completed, it's going to flip it back to not completed, and so forth. Great. We'll start by this part. We're going to create a function that is going to just change the completion state. So how can we do that? It's pretty easy. We're still going to use form. So you can just do form like that, and inside it we're going to have two things. We're going to have an input, so you can just do an input like that, and we're also going to have a button to submit. A button. There's something beautiful I want to tell you. So in this button, let me copy this sign here. So this is a tick icon. We're going to have it here. Beautiful. There's something I want to show you here. We need just the ID to change the status of our task, either from not completed or completed. That means we do not need to pass the ID manually. So in this input, I'm going to change from the type of text to hidden. So we don't need to pass the ID manually, and value is going to be todo.id, and finally name, which is the important thing, is going to be the ID. Beautiful. Let me just save this. We should only be able to see this tick. Great. Let me add a task and let me add it. Beautiful. We have this task here. So we're actually showing this at the moment. I'm not showing the title, but we are showing this sign. Beautiful. Let us just go back and proceed. Now that we have this, we need to create a server action function that we're going to pass inside this form. So what function do we need to pass? Let me just call this function handle, because it's going to toggle the state. So you can just say handle toggle to do. Great. Ensure that you copy this. We do not have this server function that you're passing here, but you can create it inside our actions. Therefore, I'm going to do this. Let me just paste it here. I'm going to copy this because I'm going to reuse this. Control C. Let me just do that like that. We also do not need this. Ensure you delete this. And I'm going to interchange this with this. Great. One thing we notice, this time we are not working with the title, we are working with ID. So you can just change ID here, and we are receiving the ID, so you can pass ID here again. And also here we need to change, if not ID, we are going to return, and here also we are going to pass the ID. But this time we're not going to perform an adding function. We are going to actually toggle. So you can just say toggle to do. Great. We do not have this function yet, but we can actually add it. First, let us save and import this function here. So you can just come here. We need to import this function since we have created it. You can just do that. Great, beautiful. And if you have done it correctly, you can see the function is imported at this point. Now let us work with this function here. You can copy that, and then we need to move inside mockdb.ts, and you can create that function. I'm going to copy this function here. Let me just do it like this, and then I'm going to change this from add to do to toggle to do. Great. But our logic is going to be different. Now we are going to pass not the title, but this time we're going to pass the ID. So you can just do an ID like that. Great. We are passing an ID and it's a string. I'm also going to delete this part. Great. Therefore, I'm going to declare to-dos, and this time we are going to map. So you can just say to-do.map, and inside it we are going to take an individual to-do. You can just do to-do like that, and then the next thing that we're going to do, see, we already have the to-do. We are going to also fetch the ID. Therefore, I can just go back below and can say to-do.id. Now that we have an ID, we can make some comparison. We can check if the ID given is the ID of the task. Beautiful. We have a suggestion, and this suggestion is correct. I'm just going to accept this and explain to you what is really happening. Now we are checking whether the ID that we've been given is matching the ID itself. So if it's matching, we take everything related to this ID using the spread operator, everything related to this task. But we're interested with only one thing. We take the completion status and we are changing its state. If it was true, we'll use this operator to actually flip from true to false. If the ID is not matching, we need to return the to do, the specific to do unchanged. That's why we have this part. So we're having this ternary operator. If it's true, this condition is going to be rendered. Otherwise, we just return the individual ID. Great. There's something we're also missing. Let us see what it is. So we are here. One thing we are missing, or it's wrong. It is to do dot map. We are not. It's not supposed to be to do. It's supposed to be to do's, because this is the array that holds all the to do's. So you can just add an s here, and everything will work beautiful. Now that we have that, you can just go back inside here, and we need to import this function. Server functions is actually easy, just like this. Import it and save. Beautiful. We can just go back here, go back inside our project. After saving, let us see. I'm going to enlarge this. Let me add a task like that. At the moment, we are only going to have, let us look at this summary. Completed is, we do not have any task that is completed, but we have one task that is pending. That means when I click, let me enlarge so that it can become more visible. We have this. At the moment, we only have one pending task. We do not have any completed task. But when I click this, we should have at least one completed task and 0 pending. Great. Let me just click and see. Beautiful. It's working correctly. When I click, you can see that we have one completed task. That means that the state has been changed. That is good news. Let me also click it, and it should also flip from completed to pending. Let me just click it. Beautiful. As you can see, it's actually working. That is great. Now that has been the first part, and as you can see, as I had told you earlier, that we have this. We were actually doing two things. The first thing was to actually create a function that is going to toggle the completion status, and the second thing is showing the title. Let us now show the specific title, and to show the title is pretty easy. We are going to show the title using span. So just below this form, let us declare a span. We can just do span like that. All right. Inside the span, let us render the title. So you can just do this to do dot title. Great. So it's to do dot title. Beautiful. Let us provide some stylings to this class name. Now there's something else we can do. So this one is supposed to be to do with small letters. Great. Now there's something else we can do, which is really beautiful. We are going to utilize something powerful. You can just come here. We're going to utilize dynamic CSS. That means we're going to show this title different if a task is completed, and also different if a task is not completed. Great. Let us provide some class names inside. Ensure that you have backticks like this. Great. Inside it, you provide some backticks. Let us first provide the normal color. So you can just say text base, and then font is going to be medium. Great. And the next thing, we're going to have the $sign and the curly braces. Now we are going to have a condition inside here. Is the to do dot, is it completed? So you can just do is to do and then completed. We're checking if it's completed. Then we're going to have a ternary operator inside here. So if it's completed, let us show this specific CSS. So we are going to show a line through. Great. And the text is going to be gray and a value of 500. Otherwise, so for otherwise, you ensure that you have this colon and the single, the two quotation marks. Otherwise, let us just show a text that is white. You're not going to do so much. Great. Ensure that you save this, and let us go back inside our project. Let me add this. So you can just do this. Let me add the task. Let me enlarge it so that it can become visible. And when I click, wow, it's working. So when I click this, as you can see, this task is completed, and you can see here also that it's completed. We can see that we have, it's actually, we are having a line through for this task. And when I toggle it back, the text is just white. That means it's working beautiful. Great. We can also show something else just below it. I want to show the completion status and also provide some status based on completion status. Now we have shown this part. The next thing we can do, let us also show whether it's completed. We want to show to indicate that a task is completed, and if it's not completed, we also want to indicate that that task is not completed. So how can we do it? So we can just go below this div again. Then we are going to do this. So we can just say to do dot completed. So we check if it's completed. And if it's completed, we're going to use this sign. So if it's completed, inside it, you can just have a div and you're going to say completed. Great. You can just do completed like this. This is great. Now we're having this completed, but I want to show this completed in a more styled approach. Therefore, you can just do class name, and for completed, text is going to be small. So we're going to have a small text, and I want the color to be green. And I'm going to give it a value of 500 or even 400. 400 is sufficient, and the font is going to be semi-bold. Beautiful. Let me just save this and see. Right, let us add a task. For testing purposes, a task like that. I'm going to click add new task. Let me just click here. Beautiful, it's working. This is a great success. As you can see, if the task is completed, we are having this text. So let me flip it again, and you can see it's not completed. You're not having anything. Great. And you can see we're having this. Nice. Let us also show something if the task is not completed. Therefore, to show something if the task is not completed is pretty easy. So you can just copy this. I'm going to copy this and then just go below it, and then you can just do this. But this time we want to ensure if a task is not completed. How can we do that? Just introduce this condition. Therefore, this is going to negate this condition. So inside here, I'm going to say mark as complete. Mark as complete. We can tell the user to mark as complete, and also let us provide some styling. So we have text is small still, and instead of green, let us provide the color to gray so that we can distinguish the two, and the font is also semi-bold. Beautiful. Let us see it in action. I'm going to add a task. I'm going to enlarge this. I'm going to add a task, then click here, add. Now, beautiful, it's working. You can see that the color is gray. Now we're having this task, and we can just click here, and you can see it's completed. If it's not completed, we can just click mark as complete. This is beautiful. The next thing we can do, we need to also add some other functionalities. We need to add functionalities such as editing and deleting, which is going to be our last part. So you can just come here. Let us copy this so that we can have a nice flow of understanding. The next thing, just come below this div that we have here. Ensure that you're within this div, this div, because this is the one that we are looping through each individual task. Great. And then you can just do this, and this part is going to actually for editing. So you can just say editing a task like that. So how do we edit a task? So you can just do editing a task like that. Great. There's also something else that I want to see. Now we have this form, this specific form, and we have not provided some CSS related to this form. Great, but I think we can add some CSS to this specific div. Now we had this div is equals to key is equals to todo.id. Let me just provide some styling to this before we work on the editing function. So you can just do class name here on top. We're going to have a BG, and the BG is going to be gray. So we're going to have a color of gray and a value of 900. Therefore, the higher the value, the more intense the color. We're also going to have rounded corners. So you can just do rounded exile and a shadow. Great, and a padding of 4 and a vertical space of also 4. So you can just do space y-4, and then let us save this and see how it looks. All right, let me enter a task and click add. Beautiful. We can see we have this, and we also have smooth or rounded edges. Great. Let us proceed further. Now that we have that, let us work on this part of editing a task. Now, to edit a task is pretty easy, but actually it's a tricky way of editing. It's tricky, but I'm going to show you in a very simple manner. So as always, you're going to use a form, so you can just use a form like that, and then inside the form we're going to have an input. Great. And you're also going to have another input. I told you it's tricky, but I'm going to show you why we are having two inputs. And finally, we're going to have a button for submitting this task. Great. Now, there are two things that we need to do for us to be able to edit a task. We need two things. One is the input for the ID. So we can do the first one for the ID. Since it's provided programmatically, we don't need to show the input. So this one is going to be hidden. And you're just going to repeat the same as we did for this part. So I'm going we can just copy this because it's hidden, and the value is todo.id, and the name is also todo.id. So you can copy this. Great. Now the second part is going to take the value of the new title, because we are changing this to new title. Therefore, inside it, I'm going to have name. Let me just delete this type. And then let me drop it down a bit so that it can become neat. You're going to have name, and the name is going to be, we can just say new title like that. Great. We can also have something else like default value. So what is the default value? The default value is todo.title, the specific title that is there. And finally, we can add a required attribute, making it compulsory. Great. Now that we have this, we also see we have some suggestion for CSS, but I'm going to provide my own CSS. Great. Let us provide our own CSS. So you can just come below the default value and let us add a class name here for the Tailwind CSS. Therefore, flex1. Let us provide also some background color. So you can just do BG gray, and the value is going to be 800. And also the text is going to be white. We're also going to have a border. And if we have a border, let us provide the color of the border. So you can just say border is going to be gray and a value of 700. We're going to have, it's also going to be rounded. We're going to have a padding in the X direction of 2 and a padding in the Y direction, and the value is going to be 1. Great. The text is going to be small. Great. And the focus is going to be outline. So you can just do a focus of outline like that. Outline. Great. Just like that. And then you can save this, and then we need to go back and let us see how it looks. First, you need to add a task. Beautiful. And you can see it here. So this is the field for editing. At the moment, we need to provide another button here to edit. We already have a button, but we have not named it. As you can see, the default value is the actual title, and as you can see, the title is still here. Great. Let us go back. For this button, let me just provide edit as word, and I'm also going to use another icon here. These icons are free and you do not need to install any library. Let me use the pencil icon, and then I can just have it here. Great. Just like that. And then we can save and see. Let's see how it looks. Let me add a note. Beautiful. And you can see we have this pencil icon here. The next thing that we can do, let us provide some CSS to this button. So you can just pull it down a bit, and then here we're going to have a class name. Let me enlarge this. Let us just do a class name here, and we want it to have a background of yellow. So you can just do yellow and a value of 500. Also on hover, we want to increase the intensity. So you can just do BG yellow and increase the intensity, let's say to 600. And the text is also going to be black like that. Great. And also we're going to have a padding in the X direction and a padding in the Y direction of 3 and 1 respectively. We're also going to have rounded corners, and the text is going to be small. and the font is going to be semi-bold like that. Then you can save this and see. I'm going to collapse that. Let me just add a task and see it like that. Beautiful. You can see whenever you hover around the background, the intensity is going to increase. Now what is remaining is we need to provide a server action that will be called for editing this task. So what is the name of that server action? So I'm going to change this to dynamic, and I'm going to pass the function. So I'm going to call it handle edit to do. Great. This is going to actually edit this specific note. I'm going to copy that. Then we need to go inside the server action, so you can just do inside the server actions. Let me paste it here, and then I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to just change some things. Great, like that. Then we need to exchange this with this. Great job. Now the next thing we can do, we are not this time we're also receiving the ID, but we're also receiving something else. So we can just say constant. We're also receiving the new title, so you can just do constant new title like that, and you can see we have a suggestion which is correct, and you can say form data.get new title as string, but there is a catch. The new title that we defined, you used the small, actually it used the lowercase. So you can just go back here and check so that you do not have any error. As you can see here, the new title does not match. So ensure that it matches. Nice. Now this one matches exactly, so that the title starts with a capital. Then you can just save it. Then we need to go back inside server, this function here. First, let us import this function here so that we resolve this error. So you can just do to do like handle edit to do like that, then save it. Then you need to go back to this function. Great. Now we are having this function new title from data.get new title as string. Now we are receiving two things. We are receiving the ID, and you're also receiving the new title. So that means in our function we can pass two things. We can pass the ID, and the new title. So you can just do new title. Great. Ensure that it's a comma like that. Now we are passing two things, ID and new title, but this is not the function that we are going to call. We need another function that is going to actually edit this. So we need a function for editing. So how can we call it? We're going to call it, instead of toggle, we're going to call it edit to do. Great. We do not have this function. It's okay. That means we need to create it. You just need to move inside the lib mockdb.ts, and we can create this function. Let me paste it here so that I can reuse it. Let us take this function here, and then I'm going to paste it just below here, and I'm going to change this one to edit to do, from toggle to do to edit to do, like that. Now that we have this function edit to do, this time we are receiving two things. First, you're receiving the ID, and the second thing you're receiving is the new title. So you can just say new title like that. Beautiful. And this time, instead of using this logic, we're going to use something like this. Let us first check how it's going to be. Now for editing a title, let us make some changes. This time we are not dealing with completed status, but we want to change the title. So we will use the same logic. We get the to-dos, and then to-dos.map. We take the individual note and we check whether the to-do.id matches this. So don't worry about this error. This error comes because it's not used, but you're going to use it just this minute, in the next few seconds. Therefore, we're checking whether we are having a matching an ID. If you're having a matching ID, we're taking everything related to that specific task. But this time, we are not interested with the completed status. Therefore, we are just interested with the title. So I'm going to delete this part, and you can just say title. And this time we want to assign it the new title like that. Beautiful. It's as simple as that. So if the ID is not matching, as you can see here, we just return the note unchanged. So you can pass new title like that. The only thing we also need to provide is the type of new title. So you can just add a string like that, and the errors will disappear and you'll never see them again. Great. The next thing, you just need to import it here. So you can just import it here like that, and we have imported edit to do. You can save it, and then as you can see on top, edit to do has been added. Great. Let us see how it works, and we can just move here. Let me just add a task. I'm going to enlarge it so that it can become more visible. Now we have this. Great. Let me just edit it. Let me edit it to, let's say, something like that. So we are changing. Let me change it to something that makes sense. Let me change it to shopping. Great. Let me just click edit. Beautiful. It's working, and you can see the title has changed to shopping. Let us change it also to recording, and you can see when I click edit, you can see it has changed to recording. This is great. That means the editing is working as expected. There's also one thing I want to show you. If I add more tasks, let's say add another task here, you can see that it's arranging itself in grid format. So you can either use grid or CSS, it doesn't matter. It actually boils down to your own preference. Great. Let us go back and add the last function, which is just for deleting. It's pretty easy. Let us move back to this part. I'm going to enlarge this so that you can enjoy the last part. I'm going to copy this. Great. And just below this form, we can have, not this time it's not deleting, but it's deleting a task. It's not editing, but deleting a task. Great. Now this one is going to be the simplest ever. We're going to have a form, and we're also going to have an input, and finally you're going to have a button to submit. As you can guess, for deleting we only need one thing. We just need the ID. So we can just first, let me just do here delete. Great. And then let me copy this icon here. So you can just copy this icon, this part, and then I'm just going to have it here. This is beautiful. So you can just do like it like that, so that you can have the edit below it. Let me just check how it looks. Task like that, and then let us see. We are having the delete icon here at the bottom, but don't worry about this CSS. We'll refine them later. Great. Now we have this button. At the moment it's not going to do anything, so you can see it's not doing anything. Let us add some functionality or even some CSS to it. So we're going to call another function here that is going to delete this button, but before we call that function, we need to pass the ID. So how do we pass the ID? To pass the ID is pretty easy. We're going to copy the ID that we had here above. So you can just come here, this one here. So you need to copy this input. Just the same explanation as I had. We don't need to show this. We don't need to pass the ID manually. We can pass the ID programmatically. So I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to change it to this. Great. Now that we have the input ID and then hidden, and the value is todo.id, and the name is like that. Great. And the next thing, we just need to provide some CSS. So I'm going to provide CSS for this button. So we don't need to provide CSS for this input since it's hidden. Even if we provide the CSS, it's not going to be seen because it's already hidden. So there's no need. Let us provide CSS to this button. So you can just do class name. Great. The text is going to be red. So you can just do text red, and we can give it a value of 400. Beautiful. Also on hover, we want to increase the intensity. So we can say text red, and a value, let's say 500 will be sufficient. We're going to have a smooth transition, and finally the text is going to be small. Great. So you can just save this and let us see if it's working. So you can just add that. I'm going to enlarge this. All right, so when we add a new task, let us see how it looks. Nice. We can see the text. So when you hover around, you can see the color is actually increasing in intensity, just as we have already stated here, or already provided here. Beautiful. The last part, we just need to come here. Inside this form action, we need to provide a function. So the server action that will be called to delete this specific task. So I'm going to call that function, or that server function is handle delete to do. So it's going to delete a to do like that. So don't worry, we don't have this function, but you're going to create it inside the server actions. So you can just copy that and then move inside your server actions, and then just can paste it here. So the best one to use is this one. So I'm going to copy this. You can just come here below and then do that, and then you're going to interchange this one, handle toggle to do, to handle delete to do. Great. Now we are receiving the ID. This is the only thing that we need. Now the only thing that we change is this part. instead of a toggle to do, we're going to change to delete to do. So you can just do this. We're going to call another function delete to do, because this one is going to delete the to-do list. Great. Now, before we work on this delete to do, let us import this handle delete to do. So you can just come here, then we need to import it. So you can do it like that. Yes, let us import it above, then save, and you can see here above we have handle delete to do is added successfully. Let us go back, and then we can create this function delete to do. So we need to move inside mockdb.ts. I'm just going to copy paste it here, and then we can take one function and then we can just copy it. Great. Now I'm going to change this. I'm going to copy that, and then I'll use it for deleting. So you can just do this Control X, and you're going to change from toggle to deleting. Now for deleting to do, great, we are getting this. Now let us see what we are missing here. So we can just check this function. We're having this, and we need the outside curly braces. Great. Now for deleting a function is pretty easy. So how do we actually delete a function? To delete a to-do list, we need to use the filter method. So I'm going to just delete this logic. We don't need this logic inside here. So I can also delete this part. Great. Now let us declare to-dos, and we are saying to-dos is equal to, can say to-dos.filter. We want to filter. Great. And what do we really want to filter? So inside it, we can pass the to do like that. You can just do to do, and we're going to use an arrow function, and then we're going to use the not. We're going to negate, and we're just doing this to do.id. If the to do.id is not equal to, so you can just do is not equal to the ID that is provided. So we are getting the specific to do, and then we are checking if the to do.id is not equal to the ID. This is just great. Now what this really means is the filter method means that you want to only return the to-dos that do not match the given ID. All right, we need to remove this negation operator. Great. Now this is the most basic example. And what are we really doing? Filter means, and let me just explain to you in very simple terms. This is just for understanding. So we are going, let's say we have an array with this value 1, 2, 3, 4. If we say we want to filter with the we are going to return, if you want to filter this array and return the numbers or arrays that do not match the ID of, let's say, 3. What it means is that it's actually going to return 1, 2, 4. Great. That is as simple as that. So what it means, when we do this, we are actually filtering, we are removing that specific ID from this list. So if we pass the ID of 3, that means from that array, that specific task will not be seen. And this is how the filter is. Now, if I remove not equal to, that means it's only going to return 3 and delete all the rest, which is not good. Great. Now that we have understood that, we can just go back into this, and then I'm going to import this on delete to do in a very easy manner. So you can just do delete to do, then you need to import it like that, then you need to save. Great. And to ensure everything is right, you can see we have delete to do here on top. This is beautiful. Let us try and delete a task. So you can just come here. I'm just going to add some gibberish task. Great. Let me add also another one. So you can just do that. Beautiful. As you can see, we have delete. Let me see what happens. Wow, it has actually vanished. That means our delete function is working beautiful. Great. It's going to return only those arrays that are there, or only those lists or to-do lists that are there, but not specific one that you've provided. Great. That means everything is working as expected. Now we have implemented edit, we have implemented editing, deleting, and also toggling the status. When I toggle, you can see it's completed, and I can also edit, I can provide some value, and it's going to change. So we have implemented lots and lots of features. You can also see the summary tells you everything, the pending title with spaces. You can also add a title with space just to ensure everything is working fine. Beautiful, and you can see it has incremented. Thanks so much for watching. And this is how you can actually create an app or a full stack side of an app with just using server actions, no API routes.